Well, happy Monday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here and let's wake up the football gods. I hope everybody has a great week. We are headed into Memorial Weekend coming up, and then soon thereafter we have the mini camp for the Dallas Cowboys come June 6th. It's kind of that lull before the storm right now. And, you know, it's kind of that silly season. Yesterday, we read an article about why the Cowboys could be interested in signing Carson Wentz. You know, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel when you say that the Cowboys should sign Carson Wentz. Just, it's kind of crazy. But before we get to minicamp, we'll be getting to June 1st. Now, June 1st, you can designate before June 1st players up to 2 that are going to be June 1st cuts. Now, the way it works is basically you're still losing the amount of money, but it's spread out over 2 seasons. Typically, what happens with big name free agents are they have a shelf life of about 2 years. Usually within 2 years, they become too costly to hold on to, maybe 3 years at the most. But then you look at it and you say, man, we got to move on from this guy. And that is the case with a couple of guys. And, of course, we've heard about Dalvin Cook, that Minnesota has been trying to trade him without getting any offers. But also, too, that it could be possible that he's a cut guy. We've seen articles about the Cowboys might be interested in him and so on. But then there's DeAndre Hopkins. Now, here's the thing with DeAndre Hopkins in the Cardinals situation. Coach Kyler Murray is injured and won't be back until probably midway through the season. And you're looking at that and saying, this is a team that is planning for the future. The problem for the Cardinals is when you look at a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who will be 31 years old this year, 31 years old, you're saying by the time we're ready to win, he's going to be over the hill. And when you look at a cap number of $29 million this year and then $25 the next, it's like, are we going to spend $54 million for 2 years and we don't really have a quarterback in our system right now to use him? So they want to move on. You can't spend 13% of your cap number on a wide receiver right now that's aging. So they have looked to try and trade him. They've been hoping they could get a first rounder. They've been hoping they could get a second rounder. But teams looked at that contract as well as draft compensation, and you looked at that and said, nah, bro, that's too much. It's kind of the same way with Brandon Cooks. I think we had offered, the speculation was, a second-round pick. The Texans wanted us to take the whole contract on as well, and it was like, no, we're not taking on the contract and a high draft pick. They ended up waiting, and we got him for a 5th, and they ate part of the contract because, of course, they waited too long. And here's the situation with DeAndre Hopkins. Come June 1st, they will save some money if they make him a cut post-June 1st. If he's cut pre-June 1st, right now, they'll save $8.9 million. Okay, let's look at the chart here from Over the Cap. But it's still a $21 million hit. If they cut him post June 1st, that's trade. Cut June 1st, then they save $19 million. So you can look at that and say there's no reason to cut him before June 1st because you're only going to save $9 million. At least if you cut him June 1st, then you save 19. Now, this is where you start looking at this, and if you're the Cowboys and you're interested, they're going to have to eat part of the contract after June 1st. They're going to have to take the guaranteed money. What you really look at now is they, at this point, out of desperations, it's better to take something than nothing. And now the draft compensation has probably dropped from that second or third that they're looking for to a fourth or a fifth. So this is where you look at somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, who's not necessarily played with the greatest of quarterbacks at this point in his career, being 31, is looking for an opportunity to get a ring. That it may not be solely about the money. We've heard rumors that he had already hired a new agent and that he's willing to adjust his salary to be with the Cowboys. We've heard rumors that, Lamar Jackson wants him, of course, in Baltimore. We don't know where it's going to be, but you can guarantee that Hopkins is not going to be a Cardinal this season. The question is, do the Cowboys look at DeAndre Hopkins and say, that's a luxury and we don't really need it? Or do we look at that and say, that's another option to really make sure that we have plenty of weapons as well as depth? If you could boast a wide receiver core of Brandon Cooks, DeAndre Hopkins, and CeeDee Lamb, and have Michael Gallup as your fourth wide receiver, then all of a sudden you're making problems for other teams. You are truly going to be unstoppable. And that's the way you have to look at it. If I'm the Joneses, I'm exploring this. I'm doing due diligence on DeAndre Hopkins to find out, what will it cost me? Is he really willing to have a team-friendly deal? And will he work in my system? I tell you what, the difference of a Noah Brown and a DeAndre Hopkins is literally night and day. DeAndre Hopkins catches everything. I know he's an aging wide receiver, but now you got a guy who can really stretch the field in Brandon Cooks. You got a guy who is a playmaker and a superstar in the making in CeeDee Lamb. And then you got the guy who can do the hard work going across the middle and will clear out traffic, which will make your running game that much more effective. Ultimately, what you have to understand, part of the problem last year with the Cowboys offense and Dak Prescott's interceptions was we couldn't get downfield. We couldn't get separation. And so the options were throw in tight windows because guys aren't wide open. Throw in tight windows where you're risking the biscuits and the field being shortened because we didn't have the deep threat. When Michael Gallup was healthy, Michael Gallup could get down the field. Michael Gallup could stretch the field. Michael Gallup could not stretch the field, and Michael Gallup could not get open. And when you have guys draped all over the receivers and you have no choice but to either throw it out of bounds or try and fit it in there, you've got to kind of take some chances at times to get it in there. If you have a Brandon Cook who is going deep along with the CeeDee Lamb, and then you have, oh my goodness, Hopkins going across the middle, that's making the defense respect the whole field and stretches them out. And that, my friends, is winning football. So the question begs is, with the Cowboys getting an extra $10 million come June 1st, with the Cowboys having right now $10.5 million, having $21 million, it's not a bad idea to look in that direction and say, we're pushing the chips in all in this year to try and get there. It's not like that scenario hasn't been working the last few years. The Eagles got there because they brought in the hired guns. Tampa Bay won it because they brought in the hired guns. The Rams won it because they brought in the hired guns. We've made some great moves. Let's just make sure that we don't have just enough, that we make sure we have more than enough to go ahead and blow people out the water. Now, here's how you know that the Cowboys are doing things right. It's hard to find people talking about the Cowboys anymore. Last year, oh my God, it was crazy because everybody was talking about the Cowboys because we had, the El Paso with Randy Gregory and everything else, how we botched that. The Amari Cooper gone, letting go Lyle Collins and Connor Williams, that the Cowboys, failed against the 49ers. There was so much to talk about the Cowboys and how bad they were, and Mike McCarthy on the hot seat. It's hard on a brother right now to have content about the Cowboys. And so now the Cowboys are no longer that hot topic team. That's when you know they're doing things right. Nobody wants to ever give them any praise. I still have some questions on some teams that they deemed the best teams because ultimately they always have their kitty teams or their pet teams. And usually it doesn't work out. The Jets, the 49ers, those are those teams that everybody is, high on. I look at the Jets roster and I look at the schedule that they have. I'm not sure that they're going to go from being fourth in their division to a Super Bowl team. I still have questions about the 49ers with their quarterback situation. Brett Purdy played great, but he's coming off Tommy John surgery, and now there's a book out on him. And that is an aging roster that may have health issues. But let's listen to Rich Eisen before we get out of here. I'll be hitting the road, going back down to work on the Red Brick House. Going down today, we'll have our live stream tonight from the Red Brick House. Going down today and coming back earlier in the week before the holiday traffic gets up.
There's a story in The Athletic today that is trending right now, as Trey Lance trending, that Jeff Christensen, the quarterback coach, talking about how he worked out with Trey Lance and his offseason workouts with Patrick Mahomes has vastly improved Trey Lance's footwork, I guess, throwing style, just everything, calling it, quote unquote, a substantial jump. I think Trey is the best that we've seen him right now. Talking about when you watch his feet, his timing. This is Kyle Shanahan. He's throwing the ball. He's in such a better place now than he was last year at this time. And the last thing anybody should do in this position, in this world, at this time, on a show like this one, is say anything concrete about the 49ers quarterback situation. There's nothing to be said about it concretely.
Nothing, right.
Because as last year showed, anything is possible. And as this year is currently, as we stand, their quarterback from last year's NFC Championship game is coming back from elbow surgery. The quarterback from the previous year's NFC Championship game, as we mentioned, is now a T-shirt meme for the Raider Nation, represented here on the Rich Eisen Show by Jason Feller. That's where he is. The backup quarterback, one thinks, potentially could be either Trey Lance again or the third overall pick from the 2018 draft, Sam Darnold, who everybody assumes is now going to go to San Francisco and become a franchise quarterback that the Jets couldn't
good luck with
help
that
materialize, and then, of course, that Carolina had hopes for and never materialized. But I will say this. The best scenario for the 49ers is if Brock Purdy can come back and be the kid that finished last year the way that he finished last year. That's the best scenario. No, normally I'd say it's got to be the kid that they traded all the way up to number 3 overall just a couple of drafts ago, because that's got to be the case for a general manager and a coach who put their eggs in that basket, and then the kid doesn't pan out. The owner's going to go get these guys. Clearly not the case in San Francisco. The Jets are the only other team that I can think of that drafted somebody in the top 5 that didn't pan out at the quarterback position. That has not led to a complete Dracarys type fire-breathing situation for that front office and coach combination as well. And Aaron Rodgers, the fact that the owner in New York's like, go ahead and do that. I'll spend $60 million on somebody. Go ahead, do that. Let's scrap the kid that we drafted 2nd overall, by the way, right in front of Trey Lance. Let's scrap that kid for the moment. Let's place him aside and go with Aaron Rodgers. And you, General Manager Joe Douglas, and you, Coach Robert Saleh, you're welcome to stay here, and let's go win a championship together. That's rare, too. But I think Purdy would be, for me, that would be the best option for the San Francisco 49ers, because what better way to build a team than with a quarterback who has 3 years left on a 7th-round draft choice contract? That would be mother load. The mother load. You're hoping if you draft somebody like Lance, you can win a championship in his first contract before he gets paid. You're already going to start seeing the way that the Eagles are planning on building around Jalen Hurts and how long they could sustain the team that went last year to the Super Bowl. And hopefully all these Georgia Bulldogs that Howie Roseman is drafting can be championship quality. You're seeing how they're trying to build this team right now, and they'll play it out with Hurts and as long as they can with the current construct based on him now getting paid, and how Cincinnati will look when Burrow gets paid, and how the Chargers will look when Herbert gets paid, and I'm sure they've planned it all out. The 49ers are just going year by year. There's no way they were planning out their salary cap based on, well, if Brock Purdy can take us to the promised land. And Lance can change all of that and just say, you know what? That would be nice if we can go with our first contract kid in Purdy, but we'll do that with Lance. And he has, however, the biggest upside. Because if he could run this offense with the actual ability to run it and run it 20, 30 yards at a time with his legs, potentially. Well, that's the big upside. Question is when is he going to get this shot? Because Sam Darnold could beat him out. So when you're seeing the fact that he's made a substantial leap, I can't wait to see what that would look like. And the question is when will we see that preseason action? Do you read into that? In preseason? Because guess who they go and visit week 1 now, at Pittsburgh before they visit the Rams here. And then have a home opener on a Thursday night against the Giants before a week 5 Sunday nighter at home against Dallas with a home game with Arizona built in. 3 in a row at home. So
that's going to be interesting to say the least. We'll see what San Francisco does at quarterback. I'm not sold on San Francisco being the best team, second best team in the NFL. But that's the great thing about football. You never know exactly how things are going to work out. All right, good people, I'm going to hit the road. And as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys.
Our coach here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is